Hello and welcome to Macro Mondays here on Landy's Crypto Corner. Today is July 29th, 2024, and we're going to follow up with Bitcoin on some of the longer term timeframes as we do have a monthly close coming in on the Wednesday into Thursday candle. And we need to follow up with what happened over the weekend, including some of the key areas that were hit to the upside. And now we do see Bitcoin pulling back from. So Bitcoin, when we last spoke on Friday, got a nice move back up off of this nice higher low and actually set that higher low after Friday's close, where we saw the move down to the safe zone at $65,500 to $64,000. Of course, it did wick down below, but it did not break the uptrend and by any stretch of the imagination here, which, by the way, would have only been relevant on a close anyway, but it didn't even swing it. It actually pulled up about $100 to $200 short of breaking the uptrend line there, thus putting in a swing higher low and a closing higher low, then locking that in on the Friday closure. Saturday, we saw Bitcoin now hanging above the 67 2 to 300 zone. That was a good thing for the bulls, as it did make the upside run the highs zone available at around 68,000 to 70,000 to 70,200 or so. Now, in this case, I've been in text format, just kind of calling it $68,000 to $70,000, kind of ignoring any swings. But over the weekend, we saw Bitcoin closing right up against that 68,200-ish level at the bottom side of the run the highs zone. We did not see any closures inside of this zone. That's actually what the bulls want to see next, is a closure inside of the 68,300 or so. And but we did hit the upside target at $70,000. In fact, we did that in the Monday candle. After Saturday, kind of a nice doji there. We did see that the Sunday candle pushed up and closed right under the 68.3 level. And then, Monday pushed up above it again in the lower term timeframes, hit our $70,000 target, and then pulled right back and actually closed underneath the 67 200 to 300 zone here. So we need to kind of evaluate where things are on some of these timeframes, like the daily and higher, and also daily and lower. So let's go ahead and take a look a little bit closer at what's going on here at this high zone here. We got another situation where we have kind of like almost a double top look here. This high is set, but as long as Bitcoin is trading and closing candles above Saturday's doji wick low at 66,635, then that we're talking on a close. It can pull back, but as long as it's closing above there, then that does preserve the opportunity for Bitcoin to kind of go sideways and try back up to that 67 2 to 3 area, and then subsequently back up to around 68 to 70 again, possibly to the top side of the run the high zone here at that 70,200. Above there, of course, I'm looking over here to the close open structure at the highs. This is the first lower high in this series that was putting in a major swing or trend reversal. In this case, it was the 71.5 area with the wick highs coming in at 72. Above there, there is a $73,000 wick high to be aware of inside of the run the highs zone before getting to the all-time high there at around 73,135 on a close, 73,835 on the swing up there. So, that's pretty simple, pretty easy to understand. Looks like Bitcoin's pushing down right now as I'm speaking about this particular move down. So because Bitcoin did close below 67 2 to 300, we are looking for it to head down somewhere around 65.5. It's kind of right in the midst of these candles over here in that $66,000 range. If it starts to break below there, 65.5 to this $64,000 in the safe zone is a fair play. So that's looks like it's going to go for it right now. In fact, maybe not. We'll see as this video goes on. But that's the next big area to be aware of. Now, if Bitcoin does drop the higher low structure here at 63,400, I would give it room. We're talking on a close, but I would give it room down to the next wick low. If it's closing above 63,200 still, it's safe. Other than that, I would be anywhere below $64,000, especially on any medium-term timeframes below the daily below 63,200. And then I would start to target the high here at 62.8 down to the $62,000 order block candle highs here. And then back to $60,000 at the top side of the risk zone. I will tell you that for some longer term timeframes, we don't necessarily want to see Bitcoin tagging the top side of that risk zone. But as long as it's closing above 60K, looks pretty good. Longer term, not very good in the short term for the bulls, though. If Bitcoin were to shave off another $6,000 or so in price from here, if Bitcoin by chance did drop 60,000, it's technically 60,263, which is the close open structure of this complex low that was set here. There was two higher lows and then two closing lows in here. And in this case, I guess it wasn't two closing lows. It's one closing low with two higher lows. But in this case, kind of holding that 60,263 level, anywhere below there, it's fair game right back to 58, 4 to 5, possibly even the close open structure of the prior lower low of the range before putting in this lower low in, early July. That's coming in at that 58.3. So 58.3 to 58.4 at the bottom side of the risk zone. Anywhere below there, we're looking right back to 56,500. Of course, anywhere below there, we're looking to the lows and lower. But, my personal opinion is that Bitcoin needs to pull back and kind of consolidate a little bit. We'll look at the Bollinger Bands to kind of illustrate that. When we look at the Bollinger Bands, we'll take support and resistance off the chart here for just a moment. Because, we have an uptrend still. It's intact. We looked at the support and resistance. And for those that might be new here, the way that I evaluate and get my targets as accurately as I do is because I look at things in order of trend, support and resistance, volatility, and then momentum. Because the first three, they're kind of all equally weighted, but the first three, trend, support and resistance and volatility, make up the fourth piece, which is momentum. And then you can kind of, evaluate anything or trade anything as a matter for that matter. But what I want to show you here in terms of volatility is you see that we had the expansion down. We didn't get any compression phase on the bands here. So going from the lower second and third area, breaching past the basis. So you see during the entire downtrend, in the trending phase, we saw Bitcoin hanging out below the lower first standard deviation with a nice move up to the actual basis band here of the Bollinger Bands, which is a 20 simple moving average. And then it pushed back down to the lower first and kept tagging that lower second standard deviation, thus kicking off further expansion to the downside. And then when it found its footing, regained the lower first of volatility, it moved to the basis, but it didn't hang out near the basis to the upper or anywhere between the upper first and lower first. It just moved right through and started to continue the expansion, but in this case, reversing off the lower second and pushing the upper second here. Little bit of a move back to the basis band. Now, putting in that nice high at $70,000, nice swing of this local top area, and then right back down to test the low side near the basis band. Now, you can see that we're going from what is a compression up here to expansion and then to further expansion on the move off of the lows. So key area right around this lower high close breakdown area that is highlighted in the support and resistance zone around that $68,000 to $70,000. I was kind of expecting some pretty good resistance here. That was the big breakdown and rejection. So now it's about if Bitcoin can hold this area right here as support, and that's really this 64 to 65.5. So that's this high over here. This was the first major downtrend of the range. This was the last higher low. I'm sorry, not higher low. The higher lows right here. This was the last lower high. My apologies for misspeaking there. The last lower high before a higher low that kicked off a run back to the highs where we saw the double top there at $72,000. So this isn't a wick-based double top, but there is bearish divergence here, I imagine. Let's go ahead and look. Yep, bearish divergence populated right there between these two highs. That is locked in. its natural target or first target is going to be right back to the close open low here at 65, 358 in this case. So again, right around our zone between this high at 65.5 and the close open at $64,000. I will say that if we were to see Bitcoin lose the basis band here around 64,800, 64,900, it's very highly likely we're going to see this high from the most recent major downtrend in the range here at around 63.8. Of course, that's right in the area of the higher low wicks here of the current trend, down to the close open at 62.8. Then we start looking down to around $62,000 at the top side of the order block candle here. And then, of course, the $60,000 at the bottom side of the close open structure on the lows here of that prior trend. So that would kind of jive with where the lower first is as well. Lower first is currently coming in at 61,500. So it's right, kind of right smack dab in the middle of this order block candle area over here. The order block candle, by the way, that I'm pointing out, I don't do order blocks like other people do. I'll explain this in tutorial videos when I get to that portion of them. But in this case, this is considered an order block, and this is as well in my system. So, but either way, around that, it's just shy of 61.5. So again, $62,000 would be anywhere, any closes on medium-term timeframes below this high here. And then I would be looking for the lower first. That high again is at 62.8. So this is about $1,000 range between the high here of this lower high and a close and the wick. So 62.8 to 63.8. That's kind of the base of where these wicks are coming in currently on this current uptrend. And uptrend is good. I will tell you that if we do see any kind of closures below that 63,400, the uptrend will be broken. Even if it just swings around, maybe we see some bullish divergence if it can hold this area on the other side of that. Let's look at the daily momentum now. Daily momentum pivot is going to be 68, almost 400, we'll call it. If price starts to move back up, that number is going to rise intraday. So 68,400. This is a fancy dancy indicator. It's got a bunch of extra bells and whistles that I actually turned off for right now. But this is a regular Stoch, not a Stoch RSI. So this is measuring close over close price momentum. That's a paid indicator. You don't need to get that. I got that because I like to support the developers that created that. The developers over at that Eric Crown uses over at Crown's Crypto Cave, or Eric Crown Crypto now. That particular Stoch is by KVDB, but there's other Stochs in the marketplace that also have momentum pivots, just that one has a bunch of extra bells and whistles built in that I like. And of course, I like to support the developers over there as they are amazing. 68,400 is going to be the same thing. This is a free version of a Stoch like that has pivot numbers. It's got a bunch of other bells and whistles that I don't really use too much, but you can just search reverse Stoch panel in the indicators tab and pick up the BA reverse Stoch panel, and you can get one for yourself. So we're going to go ahead and turn on KVDB's one, though. I think it's a little bit more attractive because I've set it up that way. All right, so let's look at a little bit of the lower term timeframes, and then we'll move on to the weekly and higher term timeframes and talk about the monthly that's coming up in terms of a close. The 12-hour is in its in a range right now. So the 12-hour is pretty easy to identify what's going on here versus the daily. The daily kind of governed off of the lows, kind of governed the volatility range at the highs because it didn't get a chance to compress. It just kind of V-shaped its way out. Well, in this case, we did see a compression off the lows. We saw we saw basically price get walked down with a few expansion phases here and there, mean reversion back to the upper first, which was right into resistance, and then dump off for real expansion down to put in that low at 53.5. And once Bitcoin moved its way back up towards the basis on the 12-hour, you'll see this compression because there was 3 12-hour candles there was actually quite a few. So if you look at the cluster, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 12-hour candles right around the basis band. So the band started to compress, while I move and adjust to my chair here. and then re-expand to the upside. So you see the first expansion candle here came in on Saturday the 13th, and then it was expansion up. Initial rejection on this candle around this lower high, worked its way through, and then to the next high side area right here on the wick, and then of course the next high. So where are we on the 12-hour? Well, we're kind of right around this low side structure on the actual wick lows for this higher low structure here. 12-hour didn't even break its higher low structure, so looks good. There's still higher highs and higher lows here, and we see that we got the expansion up, and now we are back in compression. So Bitcoin is hanging around the basis. Now this is going to be pretty simple. If Bitcoin starts to close below the lower second, it's going to test the lows and lower. So the lower second is currently at around 64,690. If it closes below there, it's probably going to test $64,000, which this is not it. That would be this over here. So below the lower second, it's probably going to test around $64,000. It's a little bit higher, to be fair, on the close here versus the daily at around 64,215. You can see that that is right around the low side wicks. In fact, they kind of got closes right in here. But anywhere below there, we're likely going to test the lows. So anywhere below 64, 700 basically, we're going to see the lows likely get tested where the lower third is currently coming in. And that's to where the lower third is coming in, which is this high over here around 63.8 or so. Now, on the other side of that, if Bitcoin can hold any of these areas and then move back to the top side around its current highs by the upper second at 69,500 or so, and it starts closing above there, of course, it still has to get above $70,000, but we can start looking for expansion further to the upside to around, the close open structures here at 71 to, there's a wick up here, I believe, by the 70,500 to 71K by the upper third on the 12-hour to the actual highs around 71,500. So that's going to be kind of how to gauge it. So if you are using my indicator here, it's called the Landy Bands. It is not a final name. It's also not searchable in the indicators tab. So what you can do is you can just check my X profile, the bit.ly link there brings you right to TradingView, where you can add this to your favorites and you can use it. It's free. It's going to be free when it is publicly released as well. But it's got bands and a whole bunch of other things here. Let's look at the 12-hour. 12-hour is just getting rolling here, and it's got momentum divergence and it has regular bearish divergence. So we have regular RSI bearish divergence, and then we have Stochastic momentum divergence or close over close momentum divergence. So that is something to watch for. But when you're ever evaluating a 12-hour and even a daily, look to the 4-hour as kind of like your gauge for what could be happening soon on the 12-hour. So in this case, what we're seeing now is, let's see if I can actually, do I have the right thing up here? Let me go ahead and actually add one of my indicators here. That's invite only, personal. Oh man, I'm gonna mess this all up, aren't I? Multi-time frame levels. So this is something that should be integrated into the Landy Bands themselves, but because I'm looking at the 4-hour, I want to see where the bands are on the 12-hour as well. So 240. We need what do I need? I need to do math. Give me a second. I'm not prepared for math right now, and this is pretty simple math as well. So we need 3 240s. So we need oh boy, let me just look it up because my brain is not operating correctly right now. So 240 times 3, that's 720. I should have known that. Just Tony Hawk it, man. Should have known that, but was not prepared to enter the actual numbers in by minutes. Let's go ahead and take a look. Just make sure that's correct. Yeah, so that's the 12-hour. All right, so we can get an edge on expansion to the downside on the 4-hour and take a look at how that would relate to the 12-hour bands. In this case, expansion and closes that continue to close below the lower second on the 4-hour at around 66,500. We're looking for the 12-hour lower first to get tagged and possibly then move down to, the next area, which, yeah, if the lower first is tagged, if it starts to move below the lower first at around 65.5, 65.730, then we're going to move into that lower second on the 12-hour, which again, it's basically telling us that it'd be right around the lows. So if the 4-hour basically continues its expansion down as it relates to the 12-hour, we're looking for the lows to come into play. Again, that's the 65.5 to $64,000 level. And to the upside, if Bitcoin were to springboard its way up, get above the basis, which is where the 4-hour lower first is, the basis of the 12-hour is where the 4-hour lower first is at around $68,000. Above there, we look to the 12-hour upper first, which is currently where the 4-hour basis is. Again, really not that important, or that's $68,000. And I'm getting this all goofed up. 67.2 to 300. So that's our support and resistance line. So this is where I'm just looking for confluent levels. So we can see that 67.200 is the 4-hour lower first. It's right there on the green line there at that 67.200 to 300 zone, and then right back to $68,000. So we are getting confluence back to the upside as well. Anywhere above the upper second, or basically the highs at 70,000, we're looking for 70,300 to 70,500, and then the all-time high zone at 71.5 to 72. So we are kind of right in the thick of it. That's a lot of numbers to throw at you, and my apologies. It's not really about the numbers, it's about the confluence. So what I'm looking for is confluence on the lower term time frame as it relates to the higher term time frame of the 12-hour, and just kind of getting a bias. Right now, Bitcoin is getting 4-hour expansion down into, you can see the lower third is right there at that 65.5 basically. If it continues its expansion, it's basically going to run the lows right around that $64,000 area, which again, just to kind of call back to it, that is the one of the major lower highs of the very first downtrend here on the daily. So, it's nothing too crazy. We have the daily basis right in the middle of our safe zone. So it's more about if $64,000 is dropped, then we start looking lower to, upper 62s to 63, and then possibly 62 even. Anywhere below there, we look to 60,000. I did want to go through this exercise very quickly. Even if you feel like you might have got lost, what I'm going to be doing over time is kind of iterating on this from the basics to a little bit more complex as we go. And some of you have already watched quite a few of my videos and have asked me to kind of look into this. So if you are feeling a little lost, don't worry. We're going to stick to the basics. We're going to get right back to it right now. And we're going to go back and look at some of the higher term time frame stuff. So let's look at the weekly. The weekly closed as a doji, and it did not meet my criteria that I wanted to see. I wanted to see at minimum last week's high closed above, and then of course I wanted to not see it close like a doji or a shooting star or an evening star, if you like. So 68,380 did not get closed above. And from the weekly point of view, if we take out last week's low, then this sets another lower high. So by the end of the week, by Sunday, if we see this low taken out at around that 63,400 on a closing basis, that would set another lower high in the weekly. I don't necessarily think that is what we are seeing. I think that we are seeing a little bit of an overheated lower term time frame move, because over the weekend things got really frothy up at the top zone there coming into Monday. So we'll see how the rest of the week progresses. But in order to break this structural downtrend, so we have higher high wicks, higher high close, lower low, a higher low wick and close, and then a lower high wick area or swing, and then close, and then lower lows on a close and swing. So you don't want to see another lower high, but as long as it's maintaining this zone down here, realistically above 56,500, but I would want to see it bouncing off of 60K to, at worst, 58,400 to 300. Man, I wouldn't really want to see 58,400. again if I was bullish, that's for sure. But this is one of the key reasons why I bring this up on the weekly. You want to see $60,000 hold. That is because momentum is pivoted at 60,600 or so. Now, any closures on the weekly below there, then we would see it cross back down. But as it stands right now, it's fine. That's, close over close price momentum really just started to turn at the close open of this last weekly candle, and now we're in the current week. So, a little bit of a sticky situation that the bulls find themselves in. And I will tell you that one of the main reasons why we're going to go over here and look at open interest over the weekend, which of course was Bitcoin Nashville, the Bitcoin Nashville events, I should say, kind of wrapped up with some really big, announcements from various speakers in the presidential campaign. Of course, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Had his speech, and then Donald Trump had his speech. And then right after Donald Trump, to kind of piggyback off of what Donald Trump said, Cynthia Loomis came up and basically had a surprise announcement for what type of a bill she would already be offering to kind of dovetail in with a potential Trump presidency, as it does look like he is the front runner. So this is, there was a little bit of disappointment about Trump didn't get in and do like as much as Kennedy, but then there's also criticisms of Kennedy's speed in which he wanted to do things not being good for the market and good for adoption, possibly maybe a little bit too much to have the government hold as well. Then there's the camp of, Trump took a measured approach, seemed to understand the issues, but maybe not in as much detail. I think Cynthia Loomis, I think he kind of left the door open for her to potentially expand on what he was saying. So I think they both had great speeches, by the way, in terms of the crypto focus and the way in which they wanted to support the market. There's fair criticisms of both, and there's plenty to applaud on both sides there as well. I actually did a Spaces event today, Landy's Crypto Corner, first big Spaces event, episode 1, where I actually talked about a lot of that, and then had probably many of you up as either speakers or many of you in there as listeners. So, but you can see on this chart here, after saying all of that, what we had was a very big open interest build up on the daily. And in fact, let's see if I can expand that out. Yep. All right. So one of the big things that you might notice here as I kind of go through this is we're going to go ahead and snap. We're not necessarily going to snap. We'll snap to price. But one of the things that I want to point out here is what was occurring coming into the early Monday hours here. Basically at the close of the weekly here, you see this is the high in open interest. This is coming in at about 21 billion. Now that I've marked that with a trend line, I realize I should have done a horizontal here, but either way, we'll get close. Around 21.23 billion. And that was the open interest read. So we had a lot of leverage in the market. And in this case, higher leverage than what we saw, at the all-time high up here. And even the two lower highs before the trend changed down. We saw this area spiked again at the failures at $72,000, but look at where Bitcoin was trading. It's trading and just hitting $70,000 while pushing the open interest areas of the chart above where it was at the all-time high. So we saw that there was a potential open interest divergence. I did discuss this with a few people in different servers. So I was actually looking for my overhead resistance zone between 68 and 70 to kind of hold after seeing this. And we haven't quite gotten the flush that we would want to see, but it's also not that bad. So let's just go ahead and snap a horizontal up here at right around where price is trading. Let's just do a horizontal. Price is trading right around here. Let's go ahead and look at history. So yeah, right around this high that it's actually on. Yikes. Open interest this was also a downtrend, but open interest was way lower. It was 17 billion versus 20 billion is the current. That's the red there. Let's see on the way back up when we tagged around where Bitcoin is sitting right now. Yeah, we were about 18, almost 19 billion. So there's about a billion to 3 billion in open interest on the market that could be wiped. And that's where you might see, maybe if price holds up on a closing basis, that's where you'd probably see something like, come down and then go up. This, of course, would be right around this area here that I pointed out and the other charts here. So this is the only time you're going to see me doing LARP lines. It's just trying to gauge open interest. But what I will tell you is overall, when open interest is in an uptrend, price will typically follow. And we expect more open interest in this market as the actual run gets going, whenever that does officially kick off. The other big thing to really pay attention to is on Wednesday we have the monthly close, and the monthly close. These candles are very up close. My apologies, but we're going to zoom out a bit here. The monthly close, this looks like a bull flag. Yes, this looks like a bull flag. So I mean, this does look as though, on the daily, like we've kind of gone through a big ABC correction and then maybe even a 5-wave to the top side. I know that Elliott Wave guys will fight me on that, but if you're going to do any kind of analysis of the local structure, we more than likely saw a 5-wave up off of this zone, ABC, to a flat correction, depending on how you're measuring it. And then it would actually set it up. I bet you if you were to throw an indicator on here, it'd probably set it up for a 5-wave. I don't know if that's what we're going to see, but this is a bull flag as it stands right now. The monthly looks fine. In terms of major areas of interest, I have a monthly zone chart here. This is, you don't need to know this. Just understand that below around 58.8 on a monthly close would not look good. That would be, in this case, putting in a high on the monthly, although a complex one, it would still be a high, and we would be looking lower to the next monthly zone from the macro perspective, around 45, to 48 essentially. But anywhere and any monthly closes back above $69,000, we're looking for 71.5. Again, that is the monthly close. That's that area on the daily that was rejected, and then the all-time high and higher and go on the run. Now, the monthly Stoke momentum indicator will turn back to the upside on Wednesday's closure if we see a close above 68,569. Nice. But, just keep in mind that, a lot can happen between now and then. Bitcoin does look as though it's in the midst of a lower term time frame pullback into support. If it can hold this support, good. Maybe it can bounce and start to get into that, $68.5 to $69,000 and try to close the monthly on a positive note in that sense. Now, what I will tell you is this is nice swing higher low structure. So this is, no matter what, as long as this wick low at 58.3 holds, this is going to be your next higher low. So the last higher low that we had on the monthly time frame was back here at $25,000 essentially. 24,900 or so, 24,700 down here. But that's the swing. The actual closing low is sitting there at just shy of $26,000. So that's the last big higher low in a close and swing. And then this would be, your 53,500 would be your higher low, provided it holds up and then we see a low set. How do we see a low set? From a technical point of view, I need to see the close opens up here at around that 71,300 to 71.5 close above. Then I would consider the low locked in on a close as well. We don't have a 2-month. We already had the quarterly. Yeah. So nothing too crazy going on outside of that. One of the big things that I will let you know is on the 2-week, we did just open up a new 2-week candle. We're going to see around the all-time high at $69,000 being the pivot there. 3-week, we have some time on, but this also did just close anywhere above 67. That will turn that back to the upside. Yes, it's in the overbought zone, but it can hang out there longer than bears can remain solvent in most cases. Look at that consolidation, man. That's did this actually set? Yeah, it did set a low on the 3 week. 2 week, we know. Yep, that set the low. From the 2 week perspective, by the way, in terms of just candlestick structure, this right now, even coming down to like 65 and a half to $64,000 zone would be backtest of a monthly wick high at around that $65,000. This was the first all-time high in 2021 prior to putting in that $69,000 one. But in this case, that would be a backfill on the 2 week candle, kind of like how we saw a backfill on the weekly candle last week. As long as it gets bought back up, So that's the way I'd be looking at it right now. And then we come back to it later. Now, the monthly, I do want you to know, is going to be important to watch, regardless of whether things leg up right here, right now. Bitcoin holds its own, or even if it dropped the lows and went into the daily distribution that I've talked about before. This is a single bear div on the daily. So unless it takes out higher low structure at 68.4, I'm looking for this to kind of consolidate. At minimum, I'd want to see more than one drive of bearish divergence to reverse this trend. But Bitcoin's in an overall much bigger range right now. So I think I hit on most of the key points that I wanted to. There is something that I'm going to follow up with here that I've been talking about right along that I want to reiterate. I've talked about it, last Monday. Talked about it last week. Shield your eyes. The screen is going to be fully white here, so I'm giving you your warning. This is the Bitcoin production cost. And one of the things that we actually saw over the weekend closures is we saw that electrical cost had dipped down a bit below $43,000 to around $42,000. And just so you know, this is the baseline cost to mine Bitcoin, essentially. Or you can think about it like a baseline cost to run the network, right? Is a price of 43,180. It was below and in the upper 42s. Excuse me. We did get a bit of a difficulty adjustment up. And, we saw that Bitcoin ended its capitulation on the daily as well by price and miner cost getting above the actual full production cost, which is now at 60,800. So again, another point of confluence that you don't want to see $60,000 dropped again, although it can trade into 60,000 and under 60,000. You don't want to see it dropped on a closing basis and then start to continue down. That would not look great for the bulls. At minimum, I would be looking for more downside to maybe even retest the lower lows. But the risk would be daily distribution into reaccumulation. Still bullish long term. I have no problem with that. And it would mean a lengthening leg up on the blue sky breakout when it does break out of its all-time high. And it would also mean that we'd be waiting a while, though. But it means that, the longer the consolidation, the bigger the boom, and the longer the boom will last. But I noted that, back in 2020, you saw production costs fall after the halving. In terms of electrical cost, that drags production costs down. Bitcoin jumped up above total production cost, ending its capitulation after the halving. And then it went back into production cost briefly before going on the run. So we could be seeing something like that occur. And I've mentioned August is going to be pretty important. Maybe mid to late August, we start seeing the highs break. That's where we could see a repeat of this. But you see how we got the sharp fall off of electrical cost after the halving, thus production cost comes down, and then it starts to track sideways. I think that's what we might start to see right here, right now, because we went from mid to upper $42,000 at electrical cost. We might start to see that even out and trek sideways and up. And this is kind of like what we saw back here. Now, granted, 2016 was a little bit different as Bitcoin just rode the electrical cost floor all the way up. It ended its capitulation because the network activity dropped severely. So costs went down as difficulty adjusted down. So electrical went down, which brings down your total production costs. So you see that kind of downward slope, almost looks like a flag, and then boom up into the 2017 highs at that $20,000 area. Again, boom down and then up. We do see that production cost was retested. We see the production cost was retested and even traded below it. So as it stands right now, it would not be abnormal to see it tag production cost, considering all of the other information that we just talked about. Now, the current miner price is at 69,400. That was tested in yesterday's price action when it trekked up to around $70,000. Current price is a little dated on here at 68,200. So let's go ahead and just update this real quick and see where it's at. I must have updated it before the close came in. Okay, so this is actually good. Yeah, so we are seeing exactly what I expected. So the sharp drop off or decline in electrical cost, sharp drop off. We could see a double drop. We kind of already did. So we got a little bit of a tick up and then a double drop, then a tick up. But essentially, Bitcoin testing around now at 61,140 at its total production cost. We see that we are getting electrical cost now moving up a little bit more to 43,400. So that's actually pretty good. Miner cost came down a bit from over the weekend's closure. It's because it was reading just a moment ago. I refreshed it before the Monday candle closed, so it was still reading Sunday. But this came down to 68,500, so that's good for miner price. Of course, Bitcoin trading at 66,805. That's a little old data, but it's not that old. Essentially, what that means is even if Bitcoin were to move down to its lows, as long as it's holding around $60,000, I think that's good. If it gets under it needs to hold 58.4. Otherwise, it's going to go into capitulation. Again, if it spends any time under there, we will see a little bit more minor capitulation, but usually post-halving, those are usually good opportunity zones. Not financial advice, of course. You evaluate price when it gets there. But yeah, that's going to do it for today. It was a little rambly today, and I do apologize for that. My thoughts are kind of all over the place regarding price and many other things that are going on in this market, so you'll have to forgive me. Wednesday, I will have a quick take TA video just to kind of give you all a breakdown of my current schedule. On Mondays, I'm going to be doing a Landy's Crypto Corner Spaces event. I will have guests. Today was the first one. I appreciate you all of you who hung out with me and came up to speak. It was a good, robust conversation about some of the news that occurred in Nashville. And then, just some talk about various other things, including projects. And at the very, very end, just like 2 or 3 minutes of TA and market-focused talk. But going forward into the future, Mondays will be a set schedule for Landy's Crypto Corner Spaces events. And I encourage you to mark your calendars. It's going to be at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Monday. And I will have, going forward, formatted shows. So basically, I'm going to get guests. They're going to have slots to speak. I will intro them. They can intro themselves. They'll talk a little bit about what they're doing, talk a little bit about what they're seeing in the market from their perspective. And then we're going to go to the next guest. And then at the end, we'll have, Q&A or community interaction, stuff like that, where you can just come up and say hi or give me feedback or talk to anybody that's still up on stage talking about their projects, or if it's somebody from, the TA side of things, asking them questions about TA, or just talking to me. Tuesdays, I'm still going to be doing all of the normal stuff. Nothing's changed. I'll be hanging out with the Welsh community, and I'll be in those spaces at it's 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, my time. Wednesdays, still going to be doing Palm events, so Pepe Ordo Maxi events. Thursdays, there's some special stuff coming, I hope. And then Fridays, join me for the Nat Monkeys DMT Spaces event with Goyoza. We have a lot of fun talking to, primarily a lot of Bitcoin Startup Labs projects, and then of course a group of friends that we've made from those particular projects typically return and give us updates or give us insight on what they're seeing in the markets. So yeah, full slate. In between, we'll have Wednesday and Friday follow up TA videos. I'll have those up for you, and then of course jump in the Discord servers and take a look at the charts in between the videos for me, where you can find me, I should say, and then yeah, give me your feedback. You all have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe, and of course, as always, stay safe. With all that being said, Landy out.